All right, so we're officially recording. So like I said, the topic of today's message and today's office hours is all about team communication and team camaraderie. And where this came from and why this is a topic today is because last week throughout many of the coaching conversations I had with branches, there was a theme that kept popping up about how do we get our team to rally around a goal, or how do we push a sales report from a team perspective, or how do we get people to feel like they're part of something bigger. So just by a quick show of hands, how many of you might have felt that struggle at some point so far where you're like, okay, I want to get my team. I see Jasmine. Okay, perfect. Cool. So a couple of initial thoughts for all of you guys. Make sure you're writing this one down. So if you just focus on individual goals with your teammates, what ends up happening is you have a bunch of individual contributors. All right, so write that down. Individual goals equals individual contributors. Now that's great. However, when it comes to pushing towards team goals, you need more than individual contributors, because the phrase individual contributor, this is a phrase that's used in corporate America all over the place. And basically what it means is that they come, they show up, they do their job, they accomplish their tasks, and then they leave. Now, again, it's valuable that your teammates have individual goals because that's what's going to get them started. However, there is that additional puzzle piece of getting them tied into the team goal. Now, if we were to only focus on team goals, then oftentimes we're kind of missing out on the opportunity to push people towards what their ultimate potential is. So it's not one or the other, it's a conversation about both. And so we start with the individual goals to get them tied into what they want to accomplish, because ultimately people accept this position, they show up and they get started because they've got personal reasons why. However, one of the big things that keeps people around is when they feel connected to a team. Now, I want to ask you all a quick reflection question. Think back to when you first started with Vector. At what point did you begin feeling like you were part of something bigger? Was it SC1? Was it your first team meeting? Was it your first SC2? But what was that point when you started to feel like you were part of something bigger? And if you think specifically about that point, what were some factors that caused you to feel that way? Was it a message that your DM gave? Was it meeting your DVM for the first time? Was it seeing people get awards during the push period? Was it your DM talking about the weekly goal and celebrating because the team hit that weekly goal? But I want you to take a minute here and just think, what was that moment like where I realized, oh, it's not just about me, there's something bigger here? So take a minute to capture that. And then I'd love to invite you all to share. Again, we're in a small group here, so there's no hiding. You can't hide behind your screen. But I want you to think, okay, when was it and what happened? So Jacob, I'm going to put you on the spot here. At what point did you really feel like you were part of something bigger when you started with Vector?
It was really my first conference I went to. This was before the pandemic. It was PDC. So not last winter, but 2 winters ago, just seeing like 3, 4, 500 people and meeting everybody. But honestly, the conference is now too. So
Cool, conferences, okay. And you mentioned a few key factors there. It was meeting other people. What else about that conference, the experience made you feel like, oh, wow, this is something big?
I guess also being in a room with kind of like-minded individuals, that was big too. And also just all of the connections that I made with it as well, and just the experience.
Cool, okay, great. Jasmine Gladney, we're gonna go down to you.
So my first experience was definitely my first conference at SC1. Like I started in the middle of it basically. And we went to our conference and just hearing meeting Brian for the first time and him talking about like the Virginia division as a whole and then seeing everybody else in the division and just talking about like how we are, where we're going, and even if you like contribute this amount or this big amount, we're still heading in the right direction. And then like going to like a receptionist for like when you hit your goals and things like that, and just getting to meet him personally and like other DMs and like his wife and things like that. That's when I really felt like this is really good. Like I like this. So
Cool. Was this before the pandemic as well?
yeah, it was before the pandemic.
All right, Jasmine Norman, share with us. When did you kind of have that light bulb moment?
Okay, so it was my first conference as well, which was SC2. And just like seeing Jeff Gamboa's energy, like with the awards and everything like that. And then the messages, just seeing like 500 people in a Zoom room and like just seeing like they're all like minded and hungry for more information and growing. I just felt like more a part of a team and just like also my first team meeting, just seeing more like minded people. Us hitting our goals, having drawings, just like camaraderie in a general sense.
Great. Now, was this before the pandemic as well?
No, this was during.
Great. I'm so happy that at least somebody here had that moment click for them virtually versus in person. Because I think one of the limiting beliefs that is true for a lot of branches who started with Vector before the pandemic is that it's way harder to create a team environment now without having those in-person conferences. And I want to take a minute to squash that belief because at the end of the day, all of you know, or at least I'm assuming that you know the law of the lid, meaning that you as the leader, you are the one who determines the level of belief your people can have. And if there is a limiting belief that you have, it will be passed down onto your team, no matter how much you try to fight that limiting belief. And so it's important that you go to work on eliminating that limiting belief for the sake of your people. So if you have a limiting belief that it's really hard to build a team because you are virtual, we got to go to work on that. And so, Jasmine, I want you specifically, I want to put you on the spot here. I want you to talk about your experience coming into Vector virtually and what your did you start in the pilot office or did you start in a district office?
A district office.
Great. So your district manager had to do things specifically for you to get you to that point where you saw Jeff. Now we all know that the power of getting your people in front of a DVM, that can really do a lot, but we got to get your people there. And sometimes that can be a difficult challenge. So what did your district manager do to keep you engaged, to keep you excited, and to get you to that point where you were meeting Jeff for the first time?
So it was just like the daily like PDI calls with her whenever I like sold something, I didn't sell something. And so she would always just remind me of like, we have team meetings, the prize is such and such, whoever books up the most demos, whoever makes the most calls, whatever the case may be. And just like, I found fun in just like competition. I'm very competitive and just like sometimes winning and also sometimes like getting like so close, maybe want to come back for more also because we had like we were in the pilot for all of our team meetings and just like kind of growing within the business, becoming like more like closer with Jordan White. She was my district manager, becoming more closer with Jordan and just becoming like more like getting more promoted and just like assistant managing and everything like that. And just having like more time with her, getting more time with her also like made her bond closer and like she asked, "Oh, do you want to go to the SC2 conference?" I'm like, "What's that?" She's like, "Oh, it's like the Super Bowl." I'm like, "Oh, so there's more people like this outside of our office who does this." I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And I kind of like, at first I was kind of apprehensive because I'm like, why are so many people excited about knives? But then I just like saw like all people were like snapping and clapping. I was doing it too. So it was just like, it came like more fun. And so, yeah.
Cool. So a couple of things that you mentioned that I think are good teaching moments here, Jasmine, and I want you all to to be listening to Jasmine's story from a place of how can I duplicate this in my organization? Because that's really where the lessons come in. Because if Jasmine was able to get to a place where she's now a branch manager, having started in a virtual office, that means that you can create leaders within your organization as well. And sometimes you just need to hear the stories of the people who've been there and who have done it. And so a couple of key things that I think Jordan did really well to keep Jasmine around. Number one, fostering healthy competition within your team. So write that down. Fostering healthy competition within your teams. How does that work? How do you do that? So you all have a unique vantage point where you are creating and developing individual relationships with all of your reps. This is part of that individual contributorship where you are helping them develop their goals, you're helping them develop their schedule, you're helping them figure out their whys, and you are pushing them towards their potential. So you know what each of your reps are going after, or at least you should know what each of your reps are going after. So you see all. Now your reps, they don't see other reps as much as you do, except for the team meeting. But even if you're in a team meeting cohort where it's like you and several other teams, your reps might not really understand, oh, these people are my team. So how do you foster healthy competition? Well, here's an idea for you. If you have somebody who's going after a similar goal as somebody else, a three-way text message can be a great place to start. And the three-way text message might look something like this. And if you've attended my office hours before, you've probably heard me talk about the power of voice notes. I love them. I think they are a wonderful way to get your message out there in a clear and concise manner and make it more fun. So I might put Jacob and Jasmine Gladney in a three-way text message and send them a quick message and say, hey guys, I want you two to meet each other. You are both going after 3K this week. Jacob has his eyes on this prize. Jasmine has her eyes on this prize. You both live in a similar area. And I know that the two of you could really be great competitors. And so I wanted to put you in this group chat here just so you can meet each other. But I want you also to know that I'm looking at both of you as leaders this week, but also I'm excited to see which one of you comes out on top. And it's as simple as that. And so what you might do is if they start to respond back and forth to each other, like you might use that chat as a place to highlight what the other person is doing. So let's say Jacob calls in for PDI, he just sold a homemaker set. You might go into that specific chat and say, oh my gosh, shouting out Jacob, you just sold a homemaker set. Jasmine, what do you have on your agenda today? How are you gonna beat Jacob or something like that? So you have the opportunity to foster a healthy competition. Now here's the key to the word healthy. You want to ask permission first. So before you put them into the group chat, you want to shoot each of them an individual text and say, hey, there's somebody on the team who I think you would get along well with, and you would also compete well with because you have similar goals and similar skill sets. Would you be okay with me connecting you two? That's how you foster a healthy, competitive relationship. Now, I am not saying that you only showcase their success within that chat. You obviously still want to utilize your group chat, but from a standpoint of just fostering that healthy competition between a few different people, maybe it's a group chat of 5 people, all of which say they want to go over 1K for the week. You know, even if you were to have a team of 25 people and only 5 go get over 1K for the week, that's still a really good sales report. You're probably going to have a 10, 15K sales report if you've got 25 active reps and 5 are over 1K. So you might just start creating these small little accountability groups on a weekly basis based around the goals that they share with you during your Sunday meetings or whenever it is you have those PCs with your people to get their goals. Why is this valuable? Well, for you as a manager, you're being held accountable to actually getting their goals, because you know now that you're going to be intentional about setting people up together. So you can't do that unless you know what each of them are going after. Then you set them up together, and it becomes this little area of like, okay, let's shout each other out. Let's support each other. Let's cheer each other on. You know, maybe we have like a little gift war, and that can be something else fun that you do. I think Brian Harmon would probably do this in a heartbeat. Like you go, you pick a random hour of the day. It's 2 p.m. gift war time. Let's see who's got the best gifts or gifs, whatever you want to call them. But it's a way to make things fun, spice things up, and make it a little bit different. All right. So that's an idea of fostering healthy competition. It also comes in the team chat as well. And it's shouting people out, it's recognizing people in the team chat, but it's also asking leaders to share advice. And this is less about competition, but more about team camaraderie. So if you are not doing the behind the scenes work of asking your leaders to share in the team chat, you have got to start doing that. So if you have somebody who calls you with a great PDI, you know, they either they had a no sale, but they got 15 racks in a really great area, or they dropped down effectively and they sold a studio set and they're really proud of themselves, or they sold a homemaker set, or whatever it might be. That needs to be shared in the WhatsApp right away. And I'm sure you probably already do this, but in every PDI call where there's positive news, you should end by saying, hey, can you share that in the WhatsApp right after you're off this phone here? I want to make sure that I can celebrate you in the team chat and the rest of the team sees what you're doing as well. And when they share it in the team chat, your next question is, this is awesome. Can you give everybody a tip or two on how you made this happen? So that way you begin elevating leaders within your team. So it's not just about you and that person, but it's about that person now feeling as though they have an extra responsibility, like what Jasmine was saying that Jordan did for her. She began promoting her and giving her more responsibility and more leadership. People crave that recognition. They crave that ability to share and influence others. So I'm going to pause for a second because I know that I went through a lot with you, from the healthy competition, creating those like little accountability groups, to then also, utilizing your team chat in a way to share really hot news. What questions, comments, or thoughts are coming up for you that we can talk through together? Jasmine Norman, yes.
Okay, so my team is kind of like MIA right now. Like I just got off the phone with one of my reps that just launched on Friday, and he just had his first demo. He didn't sell anything, but I just added him to the group chat and everything like that. But my other team, like they don't answer my calls or nothing like that. So I'm like, how do I start getting that momentum there? Do I just start kind of emphasizing you need to call me in order to stay here, or what do I do?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And what you'll probably find with all that I just shared is it works well when your team is working, right? But when your team is not working, it's like, how do I build a team? Which is why, going back to what I started in the beginning, you need to have people focusing on their individual goals and understanding what the standards and expectations are in order for this to work. If you just focus on filling up your team with people who are rah-rah all about the team, you're going to have fall off because they're not actually focused on doing what they came here to do, whatever that might be. So Jasmine, my question for you is, when you first launch people, how do you feel like you're doing in getting that first weekend goal and holding them accountable to calling in on that PDI schedule that your division has? And the reason why I say it that way is because every division is different. Some require calling before, during, and after. Others require just after. Others require just before. But whatever your division requires, do you feel like you're doing an effective job of upholding those standards?
No.
So that right there, that needs to change first.
Okay.
Because again, you need to get them into a place where they feel like they can get the job done individually before you can rely on them to like become team leaders. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So a suggestion for you, Jasmine, would be to go back into, if you go onto my YouTube channel. So I send out the link every week with the branch impact recordings. If you click that link, you should see, because it's part of a playlist, you should see a branch call about goal setting. That is helpful for like that first weekend goal setting, that fast start goal setting. Make sure that you go back and watch that. One other thing that I will say, and this is helpful for everybody when it comes to standards and expectations, the first time someone does not call in, or the first time someone does something that is against the standard or below the standard, your job as a manager is to call them out. Now, I don't like to use the word call them out. I like to use the phrase call them in, because what you're really doing is you're calling them back to the focus, which is to get the job done. It's to call in, it's to do the things that you express to them they need to do. And that's another big point here, Jasmine. It needs to be explicitly laid out for them. Here are the expectations. The expectation is that, you are calling before, during, and after all of your demos or whatever, again, that the visual expectation is. And you have to make sure that everyone agrees to that. That's what the agreements are. Jeff Gamboa talks all the time about his agreements. This is one of those agreements from a more like office perspective. So the minute that someone doesn't call in after a demo that they have, you got to reach out to them and say, hey, the standard is that you're calling in, please give me a call as soon as you get this. Something along those lines, okay? Does that give you some things to think about?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, all right, good. Other thoughts or questions around fostering that healthy competition and the team communication?
Just a thought about like the fostering the healthy competition. So with the three-way texting, I have two D2 athletes on my team, and I'm literally doing the same exact thing you're doing, like just health, like competitive competition yet healthy, but at the same time, it's really good that you said that, because it's also helping like the PR culture as well, like team building, like, hey, now there's so much more open to it and more people it's just spreading throughout the entire team. So it's just really important that you have like those one or two people that kind of have like ripples throughout the rest of your team. So that was really good that you said that.
And that's a great point to bring up too, Jacob, is the power of that team camaraderie and how it affects your PR chains too. Because people want to bring people into an environment that feels good, that feels fun, and that feels exciting. And again, if you just focus on the individual contributorship, you're missing out on some of those key elements that will attract people into the organization. So a great book, if you guys love books, and it's a book you can read in 2 days. It's called The Energy Bus by John Gordon. It's all about getting people on the bus. It's all about stating the expectations ahead of time, getting people's buy-ins, holding people accountable, and spewing vision nonstop. I'm sure that one of the reasons why your minds were blown during those meetings was because somebody stood up on stage, figuratively or physically, and spewed the vision. Jazz, and you talked about Brian Hillman talking about where the Virginia division was going. Jazz, you talked about Jeff Gamboa talking about like what's possible. And so vision's another really important element to team building. And I remember back when I was a branch, I had a team talk that I would give every single team meeting. And I forget the entirety of it, but I remember there was one line that was like, look around you. I know that there's not many people here right now, but come July, there's not going to be enough chairs for the number of people that are here. And the reason why that is because we have massive goals to build our team to a place where we are a championship level team. And what we know about championship level teams is they've got to be big, they've got to be fierce, they've got to be hungry, and they've got to be excited to be here. And so even though the team's small right now, I want you to know that you're going to be part of a championship team. And the best thing is that you get to be the ones who start that championship team. And I spewed vision. And I reminded people that it's going to get bigger and better. And they're going to play a big role in that. And that right there, the point about you're going to play a big role in that, that's valuable because there are some people sitting in those chairs, figuratively, physically, sitting in their Zoom room, who like to be the hero. Okay, they like to be the hero. They like to be the person who comes in clutch when needed, when called upon, and does what's asked of them. So maybe they're not the best sales rep, but when you said you're going to be part of building this championship team and it starts with you, and here's where I need help, it's in team building. Maybe something clicks for them where it's like, okay, maybe I can't be the number one sales rep next week, but I can be the number one team builder. And when you've built and spewed enough vision, you begin to attract those types of people too. And they're just as important as your sales rock stars. You've all probably heard the phrase a rabbit before. If you haven't, basically it just means like the person who gets off to the races and is selling crazy and kind of inspires other people to sell big numbers too. There's such thing as a rabbit from a team building perspective as well. And so if you have people who are like bringing their friends in droves, like that's valuable too. They might not be the biggest salesperson, but if they're excited and they can sell the vision to their friends and their friends come in and they're excited, somebody in that mix is going to be a 6K or a 10K fast starter. Or even if it's 6 of them that are all 3K reps, that's still $18,000, not to mention the effect that creates within your organization from a team building perspective and a team environment perspective. So Jacob, I'm really happy that you brought that up. Jasmine Gladney, any thoughts from you on just what we're talking about so far?
For me, I really like the voice notes, putting them into together and just asking their permission first, because that's something that I just like forgot to do. So I think that's really powerful, asking them first, again, that healthy connection. I'm curious when you were talking about, having that talk with your team, but hey, it's just this right now, but we're going to get bigger, we're going to get things like that. What are some ways, like after saying that, would you do or just advice to like make that happen as far as like them contributing to making the team bigger when you've already like, when they've already like put in names for like PRs and things like that?
So the PR talk does not end on the final day of training. The PR talk is a never ending process. Because just like Jacob expressed with those two athletes, he said, now that there's this competition, it's easier to get people on the team. So I think about myself as an example. I might have shared this before in office hours. I share this a lot. But when I was a brand new rep, I referred a lot of friends to the job, and I got a lot of crap for it from my friends, and they would post on my Facebook wall and be like, thanks for the call from Vector. No, thank you. Like whatever. They would tell me it was all scam. And I actually went into the receptionist's office about 4 days into my fast start and asked the receptionist to stop calling my list because I was embarrassed and I didn't want them calling my friends anymore. About 2 weeks later, I was in the pilot office. So my PSM, David Kirkner, pulled me aside and was like, Shelby, do you realize that you've earned over $2,000 so far working here? And I said, no. He goes, well, you have. Like, is that surprising for you? And I was like, yeah, it is. Like, it's been awesome. And he's like, so tell me what you're loving about the position. And I was like, I love this. I love this. I love this. He goes, don't you think you have friends that would love this too? And I was like, yeah, I do. Like, I know I would. And he's like, okay, here's what I want you to know. Like, I don't need all your friends, but I want the ones who you know would love this. So who are those people? And they don't need to be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 of them. Who's your best friend that you know would crush this? And I was like, Hadley Hall. He goes, great. Let's get her in for the interview. Let's just start with Hadley. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And so this happened 2 weeks later. He got all my names and numbers in the front end. There were a few people that came in for interviews. 1 or 2 panned out, but nothing crazy. But then he reminded me of why I loved this position. And I was the one who was telling him why I loved it, right? And then he goes, don't you think you have friends who would love this too? And I was like, yes, I know I do. Because most of your PR or most of your reps like know their friends would be great, but their friends are, they've got sticks up their butts for whatever reasons about Cutco, right? So what David did that was really interesting, it was a psychological thing where he was like, I don't need all your friends. Like, let's stop worrying about the people who gave you crap for it. And let's just focus on those 1 or 2 people who you know would crush it. He's like, let's just get Hadley in. And guess what? I got Hadley in because I was able to have a real conversation with her. I was like, dude, you're complaining about your babysitting job. Like, just come sell knives with me. Like, at least just come in for the interview. If you decide it's not for you, it's not for you. Guess what? Hadley came in. She ended up selling $30,000 that summer. She had a PR that was a 10K fast starter herself. So between myself, Hadley, and Hadley's PR, we accounted for $100,000 of CPO that summer. Not to mention the culture that was created by having Hadley and me in the office, who were best friends that naturally competed. So that's why I say the PR conversation does not end on the last day of training. In fact, it's a constant reminder. So every single team meeting, when you are spewing vision, part of that vision, a major part of that vision is the team. It's not just the CPO that you guys are getting after. It is the team. I know that right now the team's not big. I want you all to know I'm working my butt off to build this team into a team that we can be so damn proud of, because we're going to be a championship team. And we're going to be a team that sells $500,000 this summer. But if you look around right now, as great as we already are, we just don't have the capacity to do $500,000 where we currently are. We need to get to a team of 100 people in order to do that, or whatever your goal number is, whatever your CPO goal is. Maybe your CPO goal is 150, whatever it is. But we need to get to a team of 50 people. And right now we're a team of 10. Now I'm going to be doing my job as the manager, be reaching out however I can. We've got letters going out to high school seniors and college freshmen, and I've got colleges that are sending emails out to their students. And I have SMRAs that are working on social media. But here's what I know: your friends would do the best here because they trust you. Now I know that during training we already talked about PRs. You submitted some names. Some people showed, others didn't. Maybe you got some crap for it. Honestly, I don't even care about that anymore. What I care about is bringing in championship people to build our championship team. And so when people spark in your mind as people who you want to work with because you know they will crush it here, let's get them in. I don't need all of your friends. I need the friends who you know would crush it. So maybe that's like the ongoing message. It's like, it's almost kind of encouraging those steroid PRs, right? The all-star PRs that you're going to get into the organization. So, just something to think about, like when you're spewing that vision, Jasmine, you want to attach action steps to it. Now, I know that part of you might be thinking, okay, I want to spew this vision, but like, is it actually possible? And that's the challenge that you always run into as a leader, is that sometimes you have to share the things that even yourself struggle to believe, but you've got to share them with passion and heart until you start believing them. I think about my second summer as a branch manager, my goal was 150. And I knew that in order to get there, I needed to have a 35K May. And I kept saying to all of my teammates, we're going to have a 35K May. We're going to have a 35K May, even when by May week 3, we were only at 10K in sales. So I was like, how the hell am I going to have a 35K May if I've got 2 weeks left to basically double into half my sales? But I kept sharing it. And I kept sharing it in a way where I was inspiring action. That's what the vision talk should do, is it should inspire action. And guess what? We finished out May at like $35,236. I don't really know exactly how it happened, but I know that when you speak things with passion, belief, conviction, and inspire action, things happen. So for you, Jasmine Gladney, I would make sure that you begin kind of charting out that vision talk and asking yourself, what action do I want to inspire? And that's how I would go about that vision message. Does that give you some insight there?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's wrap up here with talking about driving the team goal. So we've talked a lot about the individual contributor getting their weekly goal, but then there's also that team goal. So I was having a conversation last week with a branch manager who was really frustrated. It was Tuesday, so the week ended on Tuesday. He was frustrated because his team was at $9,200 of sales. They were going to have their first 10K week, but no one handed in orders for like 36 hours. And he was like, there's no way we're going to have a 10K week. And I said, okay, does your team know that you're going after 10K for the week? And he said, no. I said, does your team know where you currently are on the sales report? And he said, no. And I said, well, then how can you possibly expect your team to get into action when they have no idea where they're currently standing? It's not fair to think that your team is going to magically hit your goals if they don't know what those goals are and how close or how far away they are. So I want you to ask yourself right now, have I been doing that too, where you've been having your own personal sales goals, but you haven't been sharing them with your team in a way that gets people fired up to get after something bigger than themselves? Think about it. Like, somebody might be excited about doing $500 personally, but they might get more excited about being part of a team that does $20,000. You know? And here's another thing to remember. There are people on your team who like to be the hero. So what do I mean by this? Let's give you a baseball analogy. I don't know how many of you guys are baseball fans, but I am going to a Phillies game tonight, which is the team nearby here. Yeah. So the Phillies won the World Series back in 2008, and they have a pitcher. Every team has a closing pitcher. Basically, that pitcher comes in the ninth inning, and their job is to close out the game. And we had this guy named Lights Out Lidge, and his only job was to come in at the ninth inning and close out the game. So when we won the World Series, he pitched that final inning. He pitched that final pitch, that final out that led us to winning the World Series. Before that ninth inning, I think it was someone like Cole Hamels or Roy Halladay or Chase Utley who was on the mound for the previous 8 innings. But when Brad Lidge threw that final out, guess who was hoisted on all of the players' shoulders? Brad Lidge. Even though the other pitchers had literally pitched all 8 innings beforehand. So here's what I mean by you have people on your team who like to be the hero. If your team knows that you are $800 away from your first 10K week, there is somebody there who will make that extra phone call or who will try to go after that extra sale because they want to be the closeout pitcher. They want to be the person who's celebrated. And the truth is, you will have people who sell $200, but their $200 order was what got you over your weekly goal. And to them, they were the hero. So it's important that your team always knows where they stand. So at the beginning of every week, when you're doing the individual contributor conversations where you're mapping out your goals, after you get their team goal, you say, hey, I'd love to share with you after you get their individual goal, you say, hey, I'd love to share with you our team goal because you're going to play a big role in this week. Our team goal is to get after $10,000. It's going to be our first 10K week. I don't know if you've ever been part of a sales team before, but $10,000, that's a big milestone for us as a team. So because you have a goal of $1,000 this week, you are accounting for 10% of our team goal. That's a big number and a number that you should be very proud of. So you're tying their individual goal into the team goal. And I want you to remember that you have to let them know where you're at. So Monday night, you're texting the team, all right, guys, the new week tomorrow. Our team goal for next week is $10,000. We've got several people going after the newsletter this week, several people going after $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. We've got several people going after, a little bit smaller than that. That's all they can do, but they're still committed to at least adding value to the team and at least, getting onto, the sales report in some kind of way. And then during the team meeting, all right, guys, so, our team goal is $10,000 this week. We're currently sitting at $3,500 for the week. What's really great about this is that we're going to launch a new training class on Friday. That's going to really infuse some more sales into our team goal. But the big thing is that we got to have a rockin' phone jam because we need demos going into the weekend. Because if we're going to hit our team goal, if we're going to not only hit our team goal, but hit our individual goals, we need demos right now. So let's have a rockin' phone jam. Let's hit our goals. Let's stay focused. Let's make magic happen. And let's make this 10K happen as a team. So that's your team meeting talk. That's what kicks off that phone jam. Then as you begin getting closer and closer to that team goal, maybe it's Friday afternoon. All right, guys, the weekend's officially here. We're currently sitting at $6,800 of sales. That means we got another $3,200 to do this weekend. I know it can happen. We've got 5 people on the board already over $1,000. Whatever kind of message that you want to get out there where you are highlighting people, you are celebrating people, you are firing people up, but it's around that team goal. They already know their individual goals. You're having those individual conversations with them during PDI, during PCs, but then it comes time to rally them around something bigger. And so then on Monday morning, y'all, we have a 10K goal. We're sitting at $9,200. Who's going to be the person that gets us to 10K? The person to put the order in that gets us to 10K, I'm going to Venmo you $10. Your next Starbucks order, your next Chick-fil-A order, it's on me. I don't care whether you've sold $0 this week or you're leading our sales right now, but whoever gets us over 10K, we're celebrating you because you made it happen for us. And so you give people the opportunity to be that closer. All right. So as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this team atmosphere because it creates leaders, it creates retention, and it creates a better team building environment. So I'm going to pause here before we wrap up. I know Jasmine Gladney had to run, but Jacob or Jasmine, do you guys have any questions, thoughts, or comments about what we just talked through?
This is awesome. I can't wait to get off of this so I can kind of just, because I've never done that because, well, this might be oversharing, but basically my top rep just quit. So like I'm at 0 right now. And so trying to get my other reps, shipping them together and just starting small, like at 1,000K week, right? Would just like kind of influence and having more people added to the team every week would get bigger and bigger so we can make up for, that loss,
Totally. And don't forget that recruiting is always the answer as well. So, sometimes you have a team that needs to be turned over. Like and you need to infuse new people into that team. So don't be afraid to say, you know what? We're going to get back to the drawing board and recruit our next top rep. Just because that person quit does not mean that you're at a loss.
Right.
Jacob, what about you?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think like right now, I think it's at least with my top people, I'm kind of just mentioning the goal and sharing it, but I think you brought like a whole nother level to it that I should definitely bring and improve upon, like the passion and really just desire of doing everything that it has to hit that goal. Right now, I'm kind of in the more in the boat of just saying, oh, okay, this is our goal, let's work towards it. But I think you took it to a whole nother level, and I think that's going to make a really big difference.
If you think about the top people in Vector, the Drew Franks, the Andrew Evans, the Brian Hurlmans of the world, what they're really good at is firing people up. Brett Wiggins as well. Like, and they all have different personalities. They've got different ways of approaching it, but they're great at getting people fired up for something bigger than themselves. And so I want you all to remember that. And maybe it takes some time, it takes some practice, but leaders inspire action and they inspire team environments. They inspire people to want to bound together towards a common cause. If you think about any great leader in this world, they're leading people towards something bigger than themselves, accomplishing something bigger than themselves. So leaders have the ability to share that and inspire action. So just remember that. And I would really encourage both of you to check out the Energy Bus, because that is a fantastic resource around this exact concept. Any final questions before we wrap up here? No? All right, cool. Well, it was great hanging out with both of you. Thanks so much for being here today, and maybe I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So how do we RSVP again?